You've
you were using the
sacrificed.
fact that the families haven't been more vocal about a conspiracy as evidence that obviously one didn't occur.
No, I'm saying that
Not
first of
really.
all, agreeing not to sue the government doesn't prevent them from talking about a conspiracy at all, so da-dump-dump. And second, what evidence would the family members of the people who died have that there is a conspiracy?
What evidence would anyone outside of the government have or possess? Like, what access or means do conspiracy theorists have to go look over the government's shoulder? And I mean, that's not, obviously, I
You're
don't
making
possess
a
access.
huge argument from ignorance. We can't possibly know what went on, so my wacky conspiracy theory must be just as reliable, just as reasonable as
I
the
never
official
suggested
story.
a wacky conspiracy theory.
You've done nothing but that. You haven't touched on the whole story, but you made claims about payoffs and then backed off of that. You've made claims about that some people they need to be refuting the version you accept, and that's not the case. I'm going to make the claim that there's no such thing as gravity. Angels just pull our feet down to the ground, and that seems just as reasonable as any other explanation. And you can't provide any evidence to refute it. Therefore, ta-da, I win.
I don't really recall that occurring, but then again, I am a conspiracy theorist and what have you. Well, let me ask you something about Building 7. I don't want to, I mean, obviously we can't spend the whole time on specifics, but why can't we talk to the people who knew the buildings were going to collapse? The government has spent money paying engineers to do simulations, trying to figure out, the cause of the collapse. And I'm thinking, why not just talk to the people who knew that they were going to collapse? I mean, that's just common sense. If you would talk to the guys, you say, hey, well how did you know? I mean, it was just...
Which people are you talking about?
Rudy Giuliani testifies in the 9/11 Commission report that he was told when he was in Building 7 that both the towers were about to collapse, and then they don't name these
Because they
people.
had been burning for a long time, and there was like dust coming out of them.
Right. So why didn't the people inside, the firefighters, realize that this was about to occur? And then they go and talk. They tell some an
Wasn't there
EMS
nobody
person.
in Building 7? Or,
No,
wait,
they're in
are we
Building
talking about
7 at
Building
this
7?
time, and they realize that both the towers are going to collapse. Although it seemed to take everyone inside and people observing, I guess, on TV by surprise, but they seemed to know about it. And then when Building 7 collapsed, that building wasn't hit by any planes or anything, and the guys told them that they said, get out, this building's about to come down or whatever. And I'm like, well, why can't we talk? I mean, why wouldn't you testify as to what you saw, what evidence you knew? I mean, this is very controversial in the sense that scientists have been claiming that they're going to come up with an explanation for why Building 7 collapsed.
See,
But they never have.
here's what you've done. You've taken bits and pieces of factual information and strung them together in a largely incoherent story that makes no sense and is predicated on the idea that, gosh, we don't know this, and why didn't they do this, and what about this, and what about this, and ooh, there's so many what-ifs that it must be a conspiracy. That's utter nonsense.
Right. For instance, I haven't heard a really useful explanation coming out of conspiracy theorists yet about why the government actually would decide to collapse Building 7. I mean, it couldn't have been part of the let's go kill 3,000 people because as far as I heard, nobody actually died from Building 7.
No, they all got out. They told them to get out. It's about to come down.
Right, so it couldn't have been part of this idea of let's kill a whole bunch of Americans, right?
Have you seen it collapse? Building 7?
So what I'm asking is, what was the motivation for blowing up Building 7? Just, I don't think that blowing up the Twin Towers and a whole bunch of people in planes
there was evidence inside that it was I guess it was a control station for the entire controlled demolition. Now I know you think
I see. So nobody in Building 7 who worked there, this was an office building, nobody ever noticed over the months or years that it took to set this thing up, hey, there's a big honkin' control, there's a big honkin' demolition station in
Not
here.
only that, if this was the control center, wouldn't it make more sense to
put
blow
it
the building
in the
up
building?
and kill the people who were in World Trade Center 7 just in case they saw something, but instead we're going to warn them and make sure they get out okay?
See, you're asking me. I would have to have been there.
Yeah, you would actually have to have a
that's the
cohesive
point.
theory.
Explanations
That's
for
the
these
point.
things.
You'd actually have to have a cohesive theory that presents a story that actually answers questions and is backed by evidence, and that's not what the conspiracy theorists have.
I mean, I know you probably don't have time for this, but I would recommend, if you ever do, you should read the New Pearl Harbor, because the guy that writes it, he's a philosopher, and I guess he does the most rational or coherent job I've ever heard of, I guess, laying out the conspiracy theories. Because for me to sit here on the phone in 10 minutes and, put it linearly for a year or whatever.
Considering I've watched about 4 films and read about 15 websites on both sides of all this, I doubt that there's anything new in the New Pearl Harbor. And by the way, if there was, we'd all freaking know about it. It would be front page news. If there was any reason, stop. Yes, it would. If there was any reasonable, cohesive story backed by evidence that confirmed a conspiracy, it would be front page news.
Unless you think that everybody in every media organization is part of the conspiracy. Like
you don't believe that the government ever covers things up, and that maybe it comes out later that they denied, and later it comes out that maybe they covered it up, like the Gulf of Tonkin or anything like that?
Sure. So?
Well, wouldn't that be a conspiracy?
Yes. Didn't we say at the top of the show?
Or anything, but
didn't we say at the top of the show that conspiracies do exist and have occurred?
So then what we're talking about is a difference of opinion on which ones have or haven't occurred. But
yeah, we're talking about a difference of opinion of whether or not there's any evidence to back up the crazy stuff that you're saying.
Right. I mean,
whether or not it's reasonable that every newspaper
here,
would not report on this.
The line of argument you're making here is that conspiracies have happened in the past, therefore this is a conspiracy.
No. I didn't. First of all, honestly, I'm sorry. I did miss the beginning of the show where you said that. But no, it sounds to me like you're suggesting that it's preposterous. To say that the government, would do something like that. It's, I guess, paranoid or whatever.
It is.
I'm not necessarily suggesting that it's preposterous that there exist some people in government who might be insane enough to try it. I'm suggesting that it's preposterous to think that they actually pulled it off so competently that nobody from the inside ever leaked. Even the people who were directly responsible for 3,000 deaths, all the news media. I mean,
that's not even what I'm saying is preposterous.
Yeah.
The time to believe any claim at all, whether we're talking about a conspiracy theory or a God theory or anything, is when there's actual evidence to support it. If in fact there was evidence to support a reasonable belief in these 9/11 inside job conspiracies, it would be front page news. Everybody would know about it. There would be no discussion, no debate. If it was something that was reasonably supported by evidence, we would know. That's what I'm saying is preposterous. That, oh, well, if you just read this book or watch this film or visit this website that explains it so much more coherently. No, the fact that somebody has explained it in such a way that you'll buy into it doesn't mean that it's supported by reasoned evidence. The fact of the matter is that while there were mistakes in the investigation, while the story is incomplete, that incompleteness doesn't support the conspiracy theories. And there have been countless, well, it's not countless because you can actually count them, a number of peer-reviewed scientific investigations into the events of 9/11, and the science holds up to the official story. I don't know why people call it the official story, the government story, whatever. It would involve a conspiracy of scientists and other individuals that's just, I mean, it's beyond comprehension.
Right,
The
of course,
thousands of people.
every single scientist is also in on the conspiracy, because otherwise some scientist might have wanted to make a name for himself by publishing something peer-reviewed that said the opposite.